Today we are going to solve multiple choice questions from definite integrals. Okay. In our previous session, we solved multiple choice questions on indefinite integration where we did not have the limits on the integral. Today, let us solve definite integral multiple choice questions. The first question is integral of 1 upon x into x raised to 3 minus 1 with limits 2 and 3. Option A 1 upon 3 log of 208 by 189. Option B 1 upon 3 log of 189 upon 208. So these two options A and B, they are negatives of each other because here the fraction is 208 upon 189 and here we have its reciprocal 189 upon 208, and we know that log of 1 upon a is minus log of a. Okay, then option C log of 208 upon 189, D log of 189 upon 208. So again options C and D are reciprocals of each other, and it is the factor 1 upon 3 that distinguishes the pair AB or the pair of options AB from the pair of options C and D. And the presence of 1 upon 3 in the options may indicate that you have to substitute for x cube, because then 3x squared dx will be dt, and then this 3 will shift to the other side. Okay, so let us see how we can solve this problem. First step, you should write down the given integral. Okay, then after this what I have done is I have multiplied and divided the integrand by x raised to 2. Okay, if you do that, 1 will become x squared, x cube minus 1 will remain as it is, x will be equal to x raised to 3, and now I have brought in the substitution x raised to 3 equal to t, so x squared dx will be 1 upon 3 dt. Okay, so now that 3 has appeared in the integral. Okay, now when you are using the integration by substitution in definite integrals, the other thing that you should take care of is the limits. Okay, the limits on x are 2 and 3, the lower limit and the upper limit. What function are you substituting as t? X raised to 3. So if x is 2, then t must be x cube, so 8, and if x is 3, then t will be 3 cube, so 27. So now the new limits on our definite integral are 8 and 27. So now the original integral I will be equal to integral with limits 8 and 27. This 1 upon 3 has come because we have substituted for x cube. Okay, so x squared dx will now be 1 upon 3 dt, and the terms in the denominator x raised to 3 into x raised to 3 minus 1, they will now be simply t into t minus 1. So this is now a standard integration by partial fractions problem with or without repetition of any linear factor. So you can now easily split this function 1 upon t into t minus 1 into partial fractions. If you do that, then your constants will be -1 for 1 upon t and +1 for t minus 1. Okay, so this is where your knowledge of partial fractions will be helpful. Once you manage to split the function into partial fractions, then you can easily integrate by using the formula integral 1 upon x with respect to x is log of x. Okay, so I have done that in this step. Okay, I have kept 1 upon 3 throughout as it is. Then 1 upon t minus 1's integral will be log of t minus 1 and 1 upon t's integral will be log t. Then I have used the property log of a minus log of b is equal to log of a upon b. Okay, so because 1 upon t had a negative sign, you can see t in the denominator. Once we complete this integration process, in the problems on indefinite integration, we were substituting t as our original function or x cube, but here we have already obtained the limits on t, correct, which are 8 and 27. So there is no need to go back to x. We can happily substitute t as 27 first and then t as 8. Okay, so once you substitute t as 27, the function will be log of 26 upon 27 minus. Now this minus sign has come because we always subtract the value of the function at the lower limit from value of the function at the upper limit. Okay, so minus log of 7 upon 8 because now t is 8. If you simplify it, you will end up getting 1 upon 3 into log of 208 divided by 189. Now while simplifying this step to this, we have again used the property of logarithms. Okay, log of a minus log of b is log of a upon b. So let us check 1 by 3, so it is either a or b. Now we have to check the fraction in the inside the logarithm. 208 upon 189, so definitely option A. Okay, let us now go to question 2. Alright, question 2 is integral of sine squared x upon 1 plus cos x raised to 2 with respect to x, and the limits on x are 0 and pi by 2. Option A is 4 minus pi upon 2. Option B is pi minus 4 upon 2. Option C 4 minus pi by 2. And option D is 4 plus pi by 2. Again, if you observe carefully, the function that is given to us is sine squared x upon 1 plus cos x bracket square. Okay, so do you agree that when x is between 0 and pi by 2, f of x will always be greater than 0? Yes, correct. Why will this be true? You have square of the numerator and square of the denominator. Okay, so you now know that the graph of this particular function will entirely be above the x-axis. So the value of the definite integral will never be negative, correct? So 0 to pi by 2 f of x dx will always be positive. So let us try to filter out the incorrect options. A is a potential candidate for the correct one because 4 minus pi is greater than 0. We can definitely rule out B now, right? Because pi minus 4 is definitely less than 0. We cannot do anything to C and D because both of them are positive. Okay, so we have at least filtered out one of the options. Let us now go to the actual solution. Write down the given integral as usual. Let's call it I. Now in this step, what I have done is I have used the identity sine squared theta plus cos squared theta equal to 1, and I have replaced sine squared x by 1 minus cos squared x. Clear? Then in the following step, this one, in the numerator I have used the formula a squared minus b squared equal to a plus b into a minus b. So 1 minus cos squared x has now got factorized into 1 plus cos x and 1 minus cos x. Okay, then we can cancel 1 plus cos x and one of the factors in the denominator. So we will now end up with, or we have now got the integral 0 to pi by 2 1 minus cos x upon 1 plus cos x. Use half angle formulas. Okay, so numerator 1 minus cos x will be 2 sin squared x by 2. Denominator 1 plus cos x will be 2 cos squared x by 2. Yes, cancel 2. So you have now simplified your integrand to tan squared x by 2. Now although we do not know how to integrate tan squared directly, we can make use of the trigonometric identity. So in this problem now we are using the second trigonometric identity, that is 1 plus tan squared theta is sec squared theta. Clear? So I have written tan squared x by 2 as sec squared x by 2 minus 1. Now we know that derivative of tan is sec squared, so integral of sec squared must be tan. Okay, now this 2 has come here as the coefficient of tan of x by 2 because x's coefficient is 1 upon 2. So that is what we do in chain rule and in substitution method. Okay, in the substitution method the coefficient of x goes in the denominator, and in the chain rule the coefficient of x goes in the numerator. Okay, but because we have 1 upon 2 as the coefficient of x, 1 upon 1 upon 2 is 2. Clear? Alright, once integral simple x, now simply substitute. Okay, first is pi by 2, so it will be 2 into tan of x upon 2, but x is already pi by 2, so it will be pi by 4, and tan pi by 4 is 1, so this is 2 minus x is pi by 2. Okay, now there is no need to write the lower limit or the value of the function at the lower limit because lower limit is 0 and tan 0 is 0 and x is already 0. Okay, so it is 2 minus pi by 2. If you take the LCM, then it will be 4 minus pi by 2, that is option A. Yes, 4 minus pi divided by 2. Let's go to the third MCQ now. Okay. Question 3. Integral of e to the power x into root of e to the power x minus 1 upon e to the power x plus 3 dx, lower limit 0 and upper limit log of 5. Option A 3 plus 2 pi, option B 4 minus pi, option C 2 plus pi, and option D 4 plus pi. Okay, now if you read the options, you will see that every option contains pi in it. So this is an indicator that whatever substitution or whichever method that you are going to use to solve this problem, some trigonometric function will appear, because in the integrand as well as in the limits pi does not appear or pi is not involved, but all of the options involve pi, and usually pi pops up in the answer or in the solution only when trigonometric functions are there or their inverse functions. Okay, so this observation of the options sometimes acts as an indicator. Okay, fine. So let us start by writing down the given integral 0 to log of 5, and this is the function. Okay, in the first step what I have done is I have substituted the term inside the root. Okay, and that term is e to the power x minus 1. Okay, we have substituted it as t. Differentiating has given us e to the power x dx as dt. And now do not forget to make use of the transformation or the substitution to get the values of or the limits on the new variable. Okay, so let us carefully obtain them. If x is 0, the lower limit, t is going to be e to the power 0 minus 1, so that is 0. So the lower limit on t is 0. Now let's go to the upper limit. In the upper limit of x we have log of 5. Yes, now e to the power log of 5 minus 1 is going to be 5 minus 1. How? We note that logarithmic function and the exponential function, they are inverse functions of each other. So log of e to the power 5 will be 5 and e to the power log of 5 will also be 5. Okay, so 5 minus 1, 4. We have now got the limits on t, 0 and 4. Okay, fine. Let us now see what changes take place in the integrand. First, root of e to the power x minus 1 will simply be root of t. Yes. Secondly, e to the power x dx, the differential part, will now be taken care of by dt. Okay. Then we have e to the power x plus 3, which can be written as e to the power x minus 1 plus 4, right? So e to the power x minus 1 is t, so t plus 4. Okay. After that, I was actually trying to solve it by using the properties of definite integral, but I did not continue further because I found that the integral was getting too much complicated. Okay, so at this stage I decided to not to continue with this method. Okay, that's why I've erased the steps. I have brought in a new substitution now. Okay, so the benefit of substituting in the definite integrals is that once you get the limits on the new variable, you need not worry about the original variables and the functions. Okay, so now what I have done is I have substituted root of t as u. Okay, so t will be u squared here. Okay, yes, so if root of t is u or t is equal to u squared, the differential will now be taken care of by the appropriate term in u. Okay, so either you can get it by differentiating both sides of this equation with respect to u, so dt will be 2u du, and this is much better now because this does not require us to again get t in terms of u. If you directly differentiate the first relation, root of t equal to u, you'll end up getting 1 upon 2 root t dt equal to du, and then you would be required to shift 2 root t to the other side. Okay, but that's fine. Both these terms are, or both these equations are telling us one and the same thing. Okay, now let us try to answer the question of limits. Okay, so let me prepare the, or let me append this table with u. Okay, we have substituted root of t as u, root of 0 0 and root of 4 2. So we have now got the limits on u as well, which was our new substituted variable or newly introduced variable u. Okay, let's now see what form or what shape does the integral or the integrand takes. Okay, root of t will be 2. Okay, let me now highlight everything in pink color. Okay, Let us start with root of t. Root of t is u. Yes. Let's go to t plus 4. T is equal to u squared, so t plus 4 will be u squared plus 4. What about dt now? Dt is 2u du. Yes, so it will be u into 2u du upon u squared plus 4. Now this is in a much better form. We can integrate it. First you have to take 2 outside, this one. Okay, you can see that 2 here. Then the integrand will be u squared upon u squared plus 4. Now you have to add and subtract 4 from the numerator. Okay, on addition you will get u squared plus 4, so it would look like this: u squared plus 4 upon u squared plus 4 minus 4 into 1 upon u squared plus 4. Now once you get this, then your job is simple. U squared plus 4 upon u squared plus 4 will be 1, whose integral will be u. Okay, keep this minus 4 as it is. Then we have u squared plus 4 in the denominator, 1 upon u squared plus 2 squared. Now this 4 can be written as 2 raised to 2. Use the formula for tan inverse. Okay, so 1 upon 2 tan inverse of x upon a. The formula says 1 upon a into tan inverse of x upon a. In our case, a is equal to 2. So we have now successfully completed the integration process. What remains to be done is the substitution of the limits. Okay, let's do that. Upper limit is 2. Substitute 2 everywhere. U is 2 minus, okay, so this will be 2 into tan inverse of x upon 2, but x is 2, so tan inverse of 1 minus, again lower limit is 0, tan inverse of 0 0, and u is 0. Okay, just a second. Here instead of x I should have written u. Okay, fine. So tan inverse of u by 2 with upper limit on u2, lower limit 0. Because lower limit is 0, both these values are 0. Okay, cancel 4 because tan inverse of 1 is pi by 4. Okay, now do not forget this too. Okay, so once you take it inside, it will be 4 minus 4 into pi by 4. Cancel 4, so the final answer will be 4 minus pi. Okay, and that is option B. Yes, option B. So we have completed the third MCQ. Let us go to the next one now. Okay, question 4. Integral 0 to pi by 2 sin x raised to 6 into cos squared x dx. A 7 pi by 256, B 3 pi by 256, C 5 pi by 256, and D minus 5 pi by 256. Clearly D is not right because our function is taking or assuming positive values throughout our interval of integration, that is 0 to pi by 2. Okay, now to solve this problem you have to make use of the Wallis formulas. Okay, and the fundamental relation between in and in minus 2, where n is greater than or equal to 3, is in is equal to n minus 1 upon n in minus 2. Now what is in? In is the integral 0 to pi by 2 sin x raised to n or cos x raised to n. Okay, now did you see that in the integral lower limit is 0 and the upper limit is pi by 2? Yes, same things here. and also the functions are now suitable. Sin x raised to 6 cos squared x. So this problem can be solved potentially by Wallis formula. Okay, so let us now try to express the given function in terms of either powers of sine or powers of cosine. Let's call the given integral I as usual. Write cos squared x as 1 minus sine squared x and then multiply this by sine 6x or sine raised to 6x. Okay, so first term will be sine of x raised to 6 minus, because of this, and then we have sine x raised to 6 into sine squared x, so that will be 8th power of sine. Yes, so this now gets transformed to I6 corresponding to 6th power of sine minus I8 corresponding to the 8th power of sine. Okay, now use the reduction formula and write I8 in terms of I6. Okay, here n is equal to 8, so I8 will be equal to n minus 1 upon n I6. Okay, so it is I6 minus 7 by 8 I6 now. Take I6 common, 1 minus 7 by 8 will be 1 upon 8. Now evaluate I6. I6 is going to be 6 minus 1, 5 upon 6 I4, and I4 is going to be, now again use the same formula. So this is an iterated integral. We are using the same relation multiple times. I4 will be, here n is 4, so 3 by 4 into I2. Okay, now and the value of I2 is pi by 4, you know that. So this relation, this reduction formula applies only when n is greater than or equal to 3. If that is not true, then you cannot apply this. Okay, fine. So it's 1 upon 8 into 5 by 6 into 3 by 4 into pi by 4. This value is of I6. Okay, if you do the calculations, it will turn out to be 5 pi by 256, that is option C. 5 pi by 256. Okay, so knowing the Wallis formula helped us in solving the problem, but it also saved time. Correct? Cool. So I think you should get used to the use of Wallis formula, the reduction formulas, and if such a problem comes, you should be able to solve it comfortably, okay, without wasting unnecessary time. Let's go to fifth one now. Okay, fifth. If integral of 1 upon root of 1 plus x minus root of x dx with respect to x, limits 0 and 1 is equal to k by 3, then k is equal to. So here they are not asking us to actually find the definite integral. They are saying that the definite integral I is equal to k by 3. So what will k be equal to? If the definite integral is k by 3, then k must be equal to 3 into I. Yes. Okay. Sometimes what happens, we get so excited that we solved the definite integral problem, we do not read the question properly. Okay, so if the option contains the value of the definite integral I, we will mark it and think that we have solved it correctly. Okay, well, you have solved it correctly, but you have not done or read the problem correctly. They are not asking us the value of the definite integral, they are asking us to find the value of k. Alright, so please be very careful, otherwise you will lose marks although you knew how to solve the sum. Correct? So here they are asking us the value of k and not the value of the definite integral. Okay, all of the options contain root of 2. Okay, maybe because we have a lot of radical terms here. Let's see. Let's write down the given integral as it is in this step, and then in the second step what I have done, I have multiplied and divided the integrand by root of 1 plus x plus root of x, and I did this because I did not want the denominator of the integrand to contain the root or radical terms. Okay, so using a plus b into a minus b, it is a squared minus b squared. Square of root of 1 plus x is 1 plus x, and square of root of x is x. Okay, now the benefit of doing this is clear. Plus x minus x will go and the denominator will simply be 1, so we need not write it, and the numerator is root of 1 plus x plus root of x. This is the term with which we multiplied and divided. Now it is in a much simpler form, or it is in that form wherein we can integrate. Okay, so use the formula integral x raised to n dx with n equal to 1 by 2. So it will be 2 by 3 into 1 plus x raised to 3 by 2 plus 2 by 3 into x raised to 3 by 2. Lower limit is 0, but this time the entire function's value at 0 will not be 0, only the second term will be 0. Okay, let us first substitute the upper limit, which is 1. So it will be 2 by 3 into 2 raised to 3 by 2 plus 2 by 3. Okay, because any power of 1 is 1. So this is the part corresponding to the upper limit 1. Okay, minus. Now while finding the value of the function at the lower limit, the second term will give you 0 because it is x raised to 3 by 2. But the first term will not give you 0. Okay, because it is 1 plus x raised to 3 by 2. So if x is 0, this will be 1 raised to 3 by 2. So again 1. So 2 by 3. Okay. Now you can cancel plus 2 by 3 minus 2 by 3 and rewrite 2 raised to 3 by 2. Okay, now 2 raised to 3 by 2 is first taking the cube of 2 and then taking its root. So this can also be written as 4 into 2's square root or 2 root 2. Okay, so our final answer is 2 by 3 into 2 root 2, but this is the value of the definite integral. Alright, they are asking us the value of k, and we have already noted that if I is k by 3, then k must be 3 times I. So just cancel this 3. You'll get the value of k as 2 into 2 root 2 or 4 root 2. So that is option D. Yes. Okay, so we have completed the 5th MCQ. Let's now go to 6th one. Question 6. Integral 1 over x squared e to the power 1 upon x with limits on x 1 to 2. Option A, root of e plus 1. Option B, root of e minus 1. Option C, root of e into root of e minus 1. And option D, root of e minus 1 upon e. Clearly we have a composite function here, e to the power 1 upon x, and fortunately the variable part in the inner function's derivative, which is negative 1 over x squared, is present in the function. Correct? So we can substitute 1 upon x as t. Negative 1 upon x squared dx will be dt. So 1 upon x squared dx will be negative 1 into dt. Then comes the question of limits. Limits on x are 1 and 2. Now what is t? T is 1 upon x. So when x is 2, t will be 1 by 2. When x is 1, t will be 1. Rewrite the given integral using the new variable t. Okay? Pay attention. E raised to 1 upon x will be e raised to t, and 1 upon x squared dx will be minus 1 dt. Okay, 1 upon x squared dx minus 1 dt. If you want, you can use the property of the definite integrals, that if you interchange the limits, the value of the definite integral changes its sign. So I have utilized the negative sign here to swap the lower and upper limits. Here the upper limit was 1 upon 2. Here the upper limit is 1. Okay. Now it is very simple. Integrate e to the power t, so that is e to the power t itself. Substitute the upper limit first and then the lower limit, so it will be e minus root of e. Then write this e as root of e squared. See, we are doing this because e minus root of e is not present in the options. Okay, otherwise in the theory examination you would have stopped here. Okay, so take root of e common from both the terms. So it will be root of e into root of e minus 1, that is option C. Yes, root of e into root of e minus 1. We have completed the sixth one. Let us now go to the seventh MCQ. Question 7. If the integral from 2 to e of 1 upon log x minus 1 upon square of log x with respect to x is equal to a plus b upon log of 2, then a is e, b is minus 2, a is e, b is plus 2, a is minus e, b is 2, d, a is minus e, b is minus 2. Now I want to clarify one thing. Look at the second function's denominator. Okay, many people write log of x squared as log of x squared. Okay, but these two are totally different functions. Okay, log of x squared can be written as 2 log x, but log of x the whole squared cannot be written as 2 log of x. Okay, so this is the main point or the thing that you should know before you start solving the problem. Okay, fine. Given integral is I. Here I have straight away made the substitution log of x equal to t. So if log of x is t, then x must be e raised to d. We have already talked about this in one of our previous problems, that log and exponential are inverse functions of each other. Okay, so dx is now e to the power t dt from this. Then comes the question on limits. Okay, the limits on x are 2 and e. What is t now? T is log of x. Yes, so when x is 2, t will be log 2. When x is e, t will be log of e or 1. So the limits are log of 2 and 1. Okay, then we rewrite the given integrand in terms of our new function as well as the differential dx. 1 upon log x is 1 upon t, minus 1 upon square of log x is minus 1 upon t squared, and dx is e to the power d dt. And now this has simplified to the standard types. Okay, what is it? Integral e to the power x into f of x plus f dash of x dx is equal to e to the power x f of x. Okay, so this is a standard problem type in indefinite integral, but all problem types of indefinite integrals can also be framed as a definite integral problem. So here the function is e to the power t into 1 upon t plus minus 1 upon t squared. Clearly negative 1 over t squared is the derivative of 1 upon t, so the integral will be e to the power t upon t. Now substitute the limits. Okay, upper limit is 1, so it will be e upon 1, so e. Lower limit, log of 2, e to the power log of 2 is 2, and t, so log of 2. This is our final answer of the integral. Okay, this is definite integral, but they have expressed the definite integral's value as a plus b log 2. Yes, so if you compare this with a plus b upon log 2, then clearly e will be equal to a, and see here we have positive sign, so b must be equal to minus 2. So you have to carefully pick b. Chances are that you may get confused or you may commit a mistake in finding the value of b. Okay, if you do not consider the negative sign. So a is e and b is negative 2. So that is option A. If you mark b That is wrong. Okay, when would B be right? Option B. Option B would be right when they express it. Let me write it in green color now. When they express it as a minus b by log 2, then B would have been the right option. ओके, कारण निगेटिव्ह साइन ऑलरेडी इथं कन्सिडर केली आहे, त्यामुळे B ची व्हॅल्यू होणार आहे 2. ठीक आहे, 7th इज डन. लेट्स गो टू नेक्स्ट वन नाउ. Okay, question 8. Let I1 be the integral of 1 upon log of x dx with limits e and e squared, and let I2 be the integral of e to the power x upon x dx with limits 1 and 2. Then option A, I1 is 1 upon 3 times I2. B, I1 plus I2 is equal to 0. C, I1 is equal to 2I2, and D is I1 equal to I2. Okay, see, in this problem you have to observe that the limits on I1 are e squared and e, and the corresponding limits on I2 are 2 and 1, and you also have 1 upon x here, and there you have 1 upon log x. So you may think that the substitution log of x equal to t will work, isn't it? Yes. So if the substitution log of t is made, then x will be e to the power t. Yes, and dx will be e to the power t dt. And more importantly, this substitution will also make the limits on the first integral as 1 and 2. Let's check. Upper limit is e raised to 2. Okay, now if x is e raised to 2, what is going to be the value of t? Clearly t will be 2. Yes, then let's go to the lower limit on x, that is e. So if e to the power 1 is e to the power t, so clearly t will be 1. Yes. Okay, so now we have at least managed to simplify the given integral to that integral whose limits are 1 and 2. So let's now see whether it turns out to be the same integrand in I2. Let's check. After these substitutions and change of limits, I1 will be 1 to 2 integral e to the power t upon t. कसं आलं हे? First of all, let's take care of log of x. Okay, log of x is t. So if log of x is in the denominator in the integrand, that will be t. Okay, now let's talk about dx, the differential. What is dx equal to? Dx is equal to e to the power t dt. Yes, so that will be e to the power t dt. So now you observe that the I1, the first integral, is now equal to integral 1 to 2 e to the power t upon t dt. Now we use the property of definite integral, that the variable of integration is a dummy variable. Okay, so no matter what variable you use, whether you use t, whether you use x, y, u, any variable. Okay, so I1 is now equal to I2 using the change of variable property. So the option D. Clear? Okay, now I want to tell you two things about this problem. Okay, the first thing is that the areas occupied by the curves 1 by log x when x lies between e and e squared, and the area occupied by the curve 1 upon x when x is between 1 and 2. These two areas are same. Okay, so the same question can also be framed as an application of definite integral question. Okay, what can you say about the areas occupied by the curves 1 upon log x e less than x less than e squared and x-axis, and the curves 1 upon x, x equal to 1, x equal to 2, and the x-axis. Okay, and just now we have proved that I1 is equal to I2, so these two areas are equal. Okay, let's check, or let's see how those functions look. Our first function is 1 upon log x with limits e and e squared, right? So it is this function here, or the blue graph. And the second function was e to the power x upon x with limits 1 and 2. Okay, so the curves are the orange curve and the blue curve respectively. Okay, see, previously I said that the area is occupied by 1 upon log x when x lies between e and e squared, and 1 upon x when x lies between 1 and 2 are equal, but that is not the case because I forgot to consider the function e raised to x which is present in the second integrand. So it is not merely 1 upon x but e raised to x by x. So it's not 1 upon x here, okay, instead of 1 upon x it should be e raised to x upon x. Okay, let's now go to this. If you see the blue curve, it is that of 1 upon log x when x lies between e and e squared. So this is e and this is e squared, and this is the area, okay, or the value of I1. Okay, then let's go to this area, the green one. This point is 1 and this is 2, so these are the vertical lines, x equal to 1, x equal to 2, and this is clearly the x-axis. Okay, so this area is I2. Okay, the orange curve is e to the power x upon x, and this is also the integrand here, e to the power x upon x, limits 1 and 2. And the equality of I1 and I2 implies that the green area is equal to the purple area. Okay, that is the conclusion. So you can frame the same question as an application of definite integral problem. Okay, this is the first thing that I want to tell you. The second thing is concerned with the first integral. Okay, this one. This may be slightly off topic, but is worth mentioning. The first integral, that is I1, in our case it is equal to integral from e to e squared 1 upon log x dx. Okay, let's check it. Yes, correct. Now what I am going to do is I am going to define a new function. Okay, I am going to call it pi of t. I am going to define this function as follows. I am going to take the lower limit as 2 and the upper limit as t, and I am going to keep this function as it is. Okay, now it is not very difficult to see that once you integrate 1 upon log x with respect to x and then put the limits, you are going to get a function of t because the upper limit is t. Okay, x will not appear in the final answer because it is a variable of integration and it is always a dummy variable. Okay, now the speciality of this integral is the following. Okay, in the literature you will find that this integral is often called as Li of t. Okay, Now I will tell you the significance of this integral. There is a branch of mathematics called as number theory, which basically deals with various properties, patterns, theorems associated with natural numbers. Okay? And one of the hot topics in number theory is the distribution of prime numbers. All of you know what prime numbers are, right? Those which have only the number itself and the one as their factors. Okay, now the question of distribution of prime numbers is so difficult in the sense that even at this stage, the famous and very intelligent mathematicians all over the world are actually trying to crack it, how primes are distributed in the natural numbers. Okay, now it has been proved, we call it the prime number theorem. Okay, and the prime number theorem says that the number of primes less than or equal to given natural number x, or let's call it t now, gets closer and closer to the value of the definite integral of 1 upon log of x dx. Okay, now this symbol, which you may have used to denote similarity of triangles, but here in this context it means as t tends to infinity. So if you go on putting larger and larger natural numbers here, the number of primes, you can say that number of primes between 1 and t gets closer and closer to the value of the integral Li of t. Okay, let me demonstrate this for you. Suppose t is 100. Okay, now I know that the number of primes between 1 and 100 is 25. We can make a list and check 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, so on. The last prime will be 97. Okay, now if instead of 100, if we write, let's say 10 raised to 90, very big number. Well, you know that prime numbers are infinite in number. Okay, there is no largest prime number. Okay, so if 10 raised to 90, or if you find the number of prime numbers between 1 and 10 raised to 90, that will be very close to the value of the definite integral 2 to 10 raised to 90 of 1 upon log x dx. Okay, so usually the prime counting function is denoted by pi, but I already used it here, so let's stick to our notation. Number of primes less than or equal to 10 raised to 90, okay, is approximately equal to integral 1 over log of x with respect to x, and lower limit to upper limit 10 raised to 90. Okay, so this is the significance of the integrand that made its appearance in our multiple choice question. What was it? The first one. Okay, 1 upon log of x. Here the limits were e and e squared. Now the thing, the reason why I told you all these things is, you should not feel that okay, matrices is a different topic, logic is a different topic, definite integrals is a different topic. Okay, no. If you go deeper, you will find many connections between different branches within mathematics, and also the connections of concepts used in mathematics to some other subjects, let's say physics. Okay, we often use integration to derive various results like potential in a gravitational field and so on. Okay, potential of a gravitational field. Same thing with electricity and magnetism. Okay, in fact the Lenz's law of electromagnetic induction is basically a differential equation, right? So all these things are related, provided you are interested in learning how these topics are interlinked. Okay, let's go to the next one now. We have two more problems. Question 9. Integral 0 to 9 root of x upon root of x plus root of 9 minus x dx. This problem is based on the very commonly known property of definite integrals, which says if the integrand is in the form f of x upon f of x plus f of a plus b minus x, okay, and if the limits are a and b, then the value of this definite integral is b minus a upon 2. Okay, you can see the same thing here. Yes, root of x upon root of x plus root of 9 minus x, and limits are 0 and 9. So if a is 0 and b is 9, then a plus b minus x will be 9 minus x. Yes, okay, and f of x in our case is root of x. So you can prove it, but we are not going to waste our time. We already know the property. We use it here. So we'll find that the value of I will be b minus a upon 2 or 9 by 2. Okay, so that is question 9. Very simple. Last MCQ. And this is again based on the properties. Okay, 10th. The value of the integral with limits minus pi by 4 to pi by 4 log of 2 plus sine theta upon 2 minus sine theta d theta is 0, 1, 2, pi. Now the presence of the limits minus a and a is an indicator that you should check for the property of the integrand or the function to be integrated. Which property? Whether it is an odd function or an even function, because we know that if it is odd, then the value of the integral is 0. Okay, so let us investigate whether it is odd. Okay, so what do we typically do? A function is odd if f of minus x is minus f of x for all values of x in its domain. Okay, so I'm saying let theta be replaced by minus theta. Okay, and we already know that sine is an odd function, so sine of minus theta will be minus sine theta. So if you use it twice, in the denominator you will get 2 plus sine theta, numerator will be 2 minus sine theta. Now observe that this fraction 2 minus sine theta upon 2 plus sine theta is the reciprocal of this fraction 2 plus sine theta upon 2 minus sine theta. Now use the property of logarithms that log of 1 upon a is minus log of a. Okay, so the function is now negative log of 2 plus sine theta upon 2 minus sine theta. So what did we prove? We proved that the function is odd, isn't it? Log of 2 plus sine theta upon 2 minus sine theta, this was the integrand, the given function, right? When we replaced theta by minus theta, we found out that the sign of the function changed, negative log of the same thing. Okay, so the given function or the integrand is odd, hence by this property the value of the definite integral is 0. That is option A. Okay, so okay, so that is the end of today's session. We have solved 10 MCQs which involved the techniques of integration like by parts, by partial fractions, as well as by substitution. And we have also solved some MCQs using the properties of definite integrals. And we have also seen how a multiple choice question can be framed. The same question can be framed in two different ways, as an area problem or as a definite integral problem. And I've also told you how these integrals pop up in seemingly irrelevant branches of mathematics, and one of them is the number theory. Okay, and here this integral is used, or this integrand is used in the study of distribution of prime numbers. Okay, so that is it. Tomorrow we are going to solve problems on applications of definite integrals, basically the area problem.